Communist state is a term used by Western historians, political scientists and media to refer to states that are governed by a single party adhering to some variation of Marxist-Leninism as its guiding ideology. However, contrary to Western usage, these states do not describe themselves as communist, nor do they claim to have achieved communism. They refer to themselves as socialist states or worker states that are in the process of constructing socialism. A communist state is ruled by a one party that professes Marxist-Leninism or some variation thereof, and aims to achieve socialism and then progress toward communism. Most communist states have been states with a form of government characterized by one-party rule or a dominant party system, organized around the political structures of democratic centralism, with the party supposedly representing the vanguard of the working class. Communist Party as the leader of the state. In the theories of German philosopher Karl Marx, a state in any society is an instrument of oppression by one social class over another. Historically, a minority-exploited class ruling over a majority-exploited class. Marx saw that in his contemporary time. The new nation-states were characterized by increasingly intensified class contradiction between the capitalist class and the working class it ruled over. He predicted that if the class contradictions of the capitalist system continue to intensify, that the working class will ultimately become conscious of itself as an exploited collective and will overthrow the capitalists and establish collective ownership over the means of production, therein arriving at a new phase of development called socialism. The state ruled by the working class during the transition into classless society is called the dictatorship of the proletariat. Vladimir Lenin created revolutionary vanguard theory in an attempt to expand on the concept. Lenin saw that science is something that is initially practicable by only a minority of society who happen to be in a position free from distraction, so that they may contemplate it, and believed that scientific socialism was no exception. He therefore advocated that the Communist Party should be structured as a vanguard of those who have achieved full class consciousness, to be at the forefront of the class struggle and lead the workers to expand class consciousness and replace the capitalist class as the ruling class, therein establishing the proletarian state. Development of communist states. During the 20th century, the world's first constitutionally socialist state was in Russia in 1917. In 1922, it joined other former territories of the empire to become the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. After World War II, the Soviet Army occupied much of Eastern Europe and thus helped establish communist states in these countries. Most communist states in Eastern Europe were allied with the USSR, except for Yugoslavia, which declared itself non-aligned. In 1949, after a war against Japanese occupation and a civil war resulting in a communist victory, the People's Republic of China was established. Communist states were also established in Cuba, Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. A communist state was established in North Korea, although it later withdrew from the communist movement. In 1989, the communist states in Eastern Europe collapsed under public pressure during a wave of non-violent movements which led to the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. Today, the existing communist states in the world are in China, Cuba, Laos, and Vietnam. These communist states often do not claim to have achieved socialism or communism in their countries. Rather, they claim to be building and working toward the establishment of socialism in their countries. For example, the preamble to the Socialist Republic of Vietnam's constitution states that Vietnam only entered a transition stage between capitalism and socialism, after the country was reunified under the Communist Party in 1976. And the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Cuba states that the role of the Communist Party is to guide the common effort toward the goals and construction of socialism. State institutions in communist states. Communist states share similar institutions. which are organized on the premise that the Communist Party is a vanguard of the proletariat and represents the long-term interests of the people. The doctrine of democratic centralism, which was developed by Vladimir Lenin as a set of principles to be used in the internal affairs of the Communist Party, is extended to society at large. According to democratic centralism, all leaders must be elected by the people, and all proposals must be debated openly, but once a decision has been reached, all people have a duty to obey that decision and all debate should end. When used within a political party, democratic centralism is meant to prevent factionalism and splits. When applied to an entire state, democratic centralism creates a one-party system. The constitutions of most socialist states describe their political system as a form of democracy. Thus, they recognize the sovereignty of the people as embodied in a series of representative parliamentary institutions. Such states do not have a separation of powers. Instead, they have one national legislative body which is considered the highest organ of state power and which is legally superior to the executive and judicial branches of government. Such national legislative politics in socialist states often have a similar structure to the parliaments that exist in liberal republics, with two significant differences. First, the deputies elected to these national legislative bodies are not expected to represent the interests of any particular constituency, but the long-term interests of the people as a whole. Second, against Marx's advice, the legislative bodies of socialist states are not in permanent session. Rather, they convene once or several times per year in sessions which usually last only a few days. When the national legislative body is not in session, its powers are transferred to a smaller council which combines legislative and executive power, and, in some socialist states, acts as a collective head of state. In some systems, the Presidium is composed of important Communist Party members who vote the resolutions of the Communist Party into law. State social institutions. A feature of socialist states is the existence of numerous state-sponsored social organizations which are integrated into the political system. In some socialist states, representatives of these organizations are guaranteed a certain number of seats on the national legislative bodies. In socialist states, the social organizations are expected to promote social unity and cohesion, to serve as a link between the government and society, and to provide a forum for recruitment of new Communist Party members. Political power. Historically, the political organization of many socialist states has been dominated by a one-party monopoly. Some communist governments, such as North Korea, East Germany or Czechoslovakia, have all had more than one political party, but all minor parties are or were required to follow the leadership of the Communist Party. In socialist states, the government may not tolerate criticism of policies that have already been implemented in the past or are being implemented in the present. Nevertheless, communist parties have won elections and governed in the context of multi-party democracies, without seeking to establish a one-party state. Examples include San Marino, Nicaragua, Moldova, Nepal, Cyprus, and the Indian states of Kerala, West Bengal and Tripura. However, for the purposes of this article, these entities do not fall under the definition of socialist state. Critiques. Communist states were criticized as one-party dictatorships, with totalitarian control of the economy and society and repression of civil liberties. Economic focus on heavy industry at the expense of consumer goods, sometimes resulting in shortages of vital products or even famine, and militarism, censorship, and propaganda to cover up the mistakes of the government. In his critique of states run under Marxist-Leninist ideology, economist Michael Ellman of the University of Amsterdam notes that such states compared favorably with Western states in some health indicators such as infant mortality and life expectancy. Similarly, Amartya Sen's own analysis of international comparisons of life expectancy found that several Marxist-Leninist states made significant gains and commented, "One thought that is bound to occur is that communism is good for poverty removal." Modern period. List of current states described as communist. The following countries are one-party states in which the institutions of the ruling Communist Party and the state have become intertwined. They are generally adherents of Marxism-Leninism in particular. They are listed here together with the year of their founding and their respective ruling parties. North Korea. Democratic People's Republic of Korea asserts that its system is socialist, although the government's official ideology is now the Juche policy of Kim Il-sung, as opposed to traditional Marxism-Leninism. In 2009, the constitution of the DPRK was quietly amended so that not only did it disavow all Marxist-Leninist references present in the first draft, but it also dropped all reference to communism. Similar to officially Marxist-Leninist states, the Workers' Party governs the country as a one-party state, although it hasn't been verified that the country's actual working class governs. Multi-party states with governing communist parties. There are multi-party states with communist parties leading the government. Such states are not considered to be communist states as the countries themselves allow for multiple parties, and do not provide a constitutional role for their communist parties. Nepal. The Communist Party of Nepal is the leading party in the government coalition. Moldova and Guyana have also recently had officially Marxist-Leninist ruling parties.